Sequestration, a planned crisis in Washington, out of Washington, that can only be solved in Washington. Sequestration, $1.2 trillion in cuts over a 10-year period of time. Georgia, Texas, California, Nevada, these states, Virginia, they will be hurt enormously. Of an economy that we've been trying to build into a recovery, this will hinder the recovery. The word demagogue means one who exploits the ignorance of people. The problem we have is that the sequestration was a deal that was brokered in Washington by the House and the Senate leaders. And it was a deal that, frankly, they created. They created the crisis. They wanted cuts, but they didn't want to take responsibility or sign the votes for the cuts. And they have been manipulated by the bureaucrats who we can only call demagogues. Demagoguery is a means of using simple logic to manipulate the masses who may not understand. What we lack is people in Washington, particularly in the House and Senate, who have any understanding of the way a national economy and the balance between economics and regulation works. The simple analogies of comparing a household budget to a national budget is one example of that ignorance. It's not the same. A nation has tools with which it can impact an economy and make it grow. All of history shows that austerity measures always lead to recession or depression. The Great Depression of 1929 is an excellent example. The government made just the wrong moves, pulling money out of the system just when it needed to be putting money into the system, just like sequestration is doing. So here we have a Congress that is led or powered or empowered or controlled or influenced by demagoguery, which influences the most basic, ignorant, reactionary responses of the American people. And the people in America who are hurt the most will be those same people who find that their jobs, their economies, their businesses simply aren't making as much money, especially when those military bases in their communities close or cut back. Postal service, all forms of federal services will be cutting back, which is just the opposite of what you need in a recession. For recovery, you expand spending in those areas. The common sense of sequestration simply does not exist. An artificial crisis created in Washington by the people in Washington. So what I suggest is that we consider a different approach. The only way that I can see that we can avoid economic recession or depression is by creating policies that encourage production. You have to make something. You have to build something. You have to grow something. You can't really grow a new economy based on a service economy. We have to encourage manufacturing by giving them incentives, by giving them tax breaks. By every person that they employ or bring in, we give them some form of tax credit. By encouraging people to keep their jobs in the United States, by companies, for example, such as Walmart, who has a huge percentage of its company selling Chinese goods. We need to say to them, okay, for every Chinese good that you sell, you have to put 10% of that into a special fund. That 10% fund will be used to finance and encourage local economic development of new manufacturing and production in the United States. We need to find ways to create incentives for people to build manufacturing here and not always outsource all of the high labor jobs. Well, you look at Detroit, you look at Cleveland, and you see cities who have been literally almost ripped apart because their manufacturing, their production has ceased. Well, we don't achieve that by sequestration or austerity. We achieve that by encouraging new manufacturing, new production. We give incentives. We provide all the tools of government that we can to create economic support tools, tax incentives for them to have manufacturing in the United States. And if we do that, maybe the power of the United States economy, the power of the working man in America, the power of the creative genius of America can still overcome the pure ignorance that we have in Washington. We can build the United States, but not by measures such as austerity and sequestration. My name is Ben Booth, Booth Global Perspectives. Thank you.